with Saikat in association with Yongo Energy Working Group, where we break down global energy systems into something real, actionable, and understandable for everyone. And today's episode is really, really critical. Stay with me, right? So let me frame the entire episode clearly. Industry accounts for nearly 30% of global emissions, and sectors like steel, cement, chemicals and other which are really emitting carbon emitting are amongst the hardest to decarbonize, right? And not because of we don't have solutions. This is because the economics doesn't always work at the risk of high and financial structures, and the structures are actually broken, right? So right now stay with me. We have an amazing person as a guest, my friend, a colleague, to unpack this. I'm joining someone working in the intersection of energy, finance, and project development. I welcome you, Bianca Garvin. Hi,
Hello.
Bianca.
Hi, Saikat. Hi. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. As you can see, it's spring, so there's nothing to complain about.
That's
How are
true. That's
you?
true. We both are in UK, so we know the value of sun, right? So yes,
Exactly.
let's start with you, not with the system yet, but just what brought you into this energy sector, project financing, and other climate change stuff. Like it's something personal, but also to get a motivation. Is it technical side? Is it financial side, or is it an impact side, or is just an emotion that you attach with?
Thank you. Good question. A bit of everything. When I started my bachelor's, I studied at Sciences Po, which is a very well-known sort of political science, social sciences university, with the ambition of I've always had this drive in me that I want to do something in the world. I think probably many of us listening have done Model United Nations back in school. That's probably where my that drive started. And during my bachelor's, I wasn't quite sure what exactly I wanted to do, whether it was peace building, human rights advocacy and defense, or climate. And then in my second, third year, I did an internship at
Hmm.
my then which then became my employer, the Global Maritime Forum, where I was working on shipping decarbonisation, and I realised that I could actually put all the economics lessons and finance lessons that I'd studied at university into practice into the real world. And I was like, wow, this is fascinating. And then I decided to pursue a master's in climate change management and finance at Imperial
Hmm.
College, which was really great. And as I was working in shipping, I realized how huge um, energy, like the emissions that come from energy use, are just massive. And basically, if you can decarbonize a lot of energy use, which underpins industry as well, you can reduce emissions massively, and that has a huge mitigation potential. So I was like, wow, this energy is such a cool field, and there are so many parallel fields to it as well. And I think the moment I really knew that I wanted to stay in it was when I attended the Clean Energy Ministerial in 2022, when I met
Hmm.
a lot of our friends, I'm sure, that I also saw at the International Vienna Energy and Climate Forum. And yeah, that was just a turning point. The IRA had just been signed, Inflation Reduction Act had just been signed in the US, and there was so much momentum about, wow, we can actually make the market for clean fuels work and for clean energy work. And yeah, it was just such a back and then in 2022, 2021,
Hmm.
it was such a golden age for like climate and energy, and it was a really, really energizing space to be in. And yeah, since then I've been committed to the cause, working on the intersections of climate, energy, and financing. And after staying at the Global Maritime Forum for a couple of years, I'm now at the Mission Possible Partnership, working across broader industries than just shipping.
Such a diverse profile, and the journey, it says it all about your experience and your involvement, mostly the motivation to just not decarbonize but also see into an economic aspect, socio-economic aspect. And I also think that it is important because many people right now watching assumes finance and energies are separate words and in separate worlds, but in reality they are deeply interconnected, right? And as you said, Bianca, you went to the Vienna right now with the Energy Forum as well. So how was your experience over there? Like, what exactly we don't know as a, you can say, um, behind the scenes, which is not there online or which is not there in the post of friends and stuff. So what exactly behind the scene that you noticed over there?
Thank you for the question. I think this is something that's very true for a lot of conferences,
Uh-huh.
and that I learned quite soon after going to a few conferences is the value of actually meeting people in person and the conversations that you have over a cup of coffee. Sometimes, literally, while you're washing your hands in the bathroom, you meet someone, and the value of those and of reconnecting with colleagues. And I actually feel like I met new people, of course, but I spent a lot of time with colleagues that I speak to a couple times a month, or maybe not even that. And just that value of reconnecting is so important because we are working in this together. And I think a big motivation for, at least for myself, to also stay is just the brilliant minds that we work with, from more junior level colleagues to also senior colleagues, and energy leaders. So I think that that's something that never, like very human side of conferences and those discussions that you have that are quite casual, they never make it onto the shiny LinkedIn posts and headlines, but that's often the biggest value for every attendee in these conferences, is that it's not just going and sitting in a panel, which
Uh-huh.
really you could be watching on YouTube. It's more the what you make of it
Yeah,
around
that's
with
true.
people who are there.
No, no. In fact, if you remember, we also met during COI 17, and from
Yeah.
there, like all of the people who we met on ground during these conferences or events, we actually make some kind of relationship. It's a relationship that's always bind us together with the knowledge, with the fun that we always act upon. So it's really tiring as well. The climate sector, when we do the lobbying, we do the advocacy, we do the activism. But during that time, we sometimes burn out. But speaking with friends, speaking with colleagues, speaking with those people who are actually with us makes a lot of sense. That brings us into the square zero. And then we start again. Like, okay, okay, friend, let's do together. What do you think?
Yeah, no, totally agree. And it's really it's super motivating, and it also allows for frank conversations sometimes because we have a professional role, of course, but sometimes it allows, if you're talking to someone that you trust well, you can actually push
Hmm.
the boundaries a bit and test ideas and test
That's true.
thinking. Um, and I think that that's also a huge value, is the meeting in person. I was able to join some conversations that, were not part of the main panels and roundtables, but were organized on the sidelines, smaller workshops. And when it is a smaller group, it really allows for that frankness and, sometimes pushing the limits, sometimes being like, this is a big shiny thing that was just announced, but does it make sense? Or what do you actually mean with this? So that's, and that's building that from the youth conferences onwards into our careers, is super, super valuable.
Oh, definitely. And also, like, if we address the core issue right now, because from outside, it really looks like there is a lot of money in the climate, but also from inside, we know when we go to these conferences that it doesn't feel that simple, you know, because money, we talk about the numbers, but what exactly the liquidification? The liquidification is not there. Exactly, the numbers are increasing, but what exactly the implementation mechanisms? Those are not there as well, right? When we speak together, we always speak about the implementation, and we should right now be scaling up because implementation gone, like far gone. Right now, we have to scale up, but we still feel that there is some kind of boundaries that has to be put out from this financing. So, Bianca, what is the disconnect, right? And what is the capital not flowing? Why is the capital not flowing fast enough into the industry decarbonization? What do you think about it?
Yeah, so got some good reflections, and I can link this back to Vienna as well, is that, financing first of a kind projects. So as you said, and I really love your introduction, like the technology exists. For a lot of climate issues, the technology exists. We need to create a market for it because green green commodities, green technologies are more expensive. There is a
Yes.
premium to pay. Sometimes it's just a capex. So it's like the first investment is more expensive, but then once the plant operates, the
True.
cost goes down, the operational costs are lower, often because it may run on renewable energy, which actually makes the operating costs much
Hmm.
lower. But you need to make that initial investment, and it is a risk. And through my work, often we talk with project developers on the ground, and one of the key barriers that keeps coming up is that there's a lack of demand for clean commodities. And I think we can all relate to this, like the cost of living has gone up, the cost of everything has gone up at the moment, and it's just like when you're struggling to even make the bottom line, why would you pay premium for green? Whether it's
Oh
at a
yeah.
personal consumer level,
Mm-hmm.
some of the costs for like green steel might get passed down to the cost of your car, even though
Mm-hmm.
that's actually quite a small increase in costs. But overall, throughout value chains,
Yeah.
suppliers, and everyone's just sort of struggling to meet, to make the economics work. So at the
Addition to the
moment,
geopolitics and the geoconflict which
exactly.
is having right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's one, there's just a lack of demand for clean commodities, and climate's really gone down on the agenda, and the requirements are not as high. And like a couple of years ago, it was just, companies would increase their business case by saying that they're a green company or they're clean. Nowadays, that's not a selling point in the same way. So
Mm-hmm.
while voluntary demand, which is basically demand for commodities that comes from the buyers of the commodities, generally it's going to be big companies. So for instance, shipping companies willing to pay for green fuels, or construction companies willing to pay for clean cement, or steel companies paying for, sorry, car auto companies, whatever, steel buyers willing to pay for green steel. That there are some voluntary commitments, and coalitions of companies who are committing to that demand. However, those volumes of demand are so small when you compare to global production. So you need the demand to come to be encouraged by policy. So you need policy that's in place, because once you've got policy, project developers, the ones who are building these clean steel plants, clean cement plants,
True.
they've got a certainty of offtake, which means they have a certainty of revenue. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I know that I've got customers who are going to buy my product, even if it is a bit more expensive than the grey
Mm-hmm.
alternative. I
Mm-hmm.
I have buyers, and that then helps secure those final investment decisions, because the financial institution that's providing the finance
Mm-hmm.
knows that they have a product that they can sell, because nobody would want to finance a project where there's, they don't have that revenue certainty in the long term. So lack of demand is really one of the key issues. And the other point you mentioned was that, there's a whole ecosystem to coordinate, and
Correct.
that's and I really resonate with that, because sometimes it's just a question of, like, some projects might have financing, but they might have some, how would I call it, logistical issues. Sometimes it's just
Correct.
there's
Mm-hmm.
no access to a grid, to a
Mm-hmm.
clean grid,
Mm-hmm.
clean electricity. And that's another issue that actually has come up in a lot of discussions recently. I heard of in Vienna and Davos, a few other events, is that our electricity system, the grid, is really old, especially in a lot of Western countries, or in a lot of like emerging new industrial countries that have massive potential to develop their industries because they've got really good renewable resources. They may not have a grid that's able to support the needs of these projects, because you need so much energy to power a steel plant, for instance. So there's some like grid connectivity issues and capacity issues, for instance, as well. So sometimes it's a permitting issue, like you want to build a plant but
Yes.
you don't, you
I
need
think we are
the
we are seeing this
permits.
permitting issues a lot right now.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like it's valid for the energy sector, but it's also same for the industry. Like, so you really need to coordinate and bring all those stakeholders together. And I've actually always worked most of my career in organizations that kind of play a bit of that role,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm in that third sector between public sector and private sector. So to me, that's something that I've been doing all the time, or like throughout my career. But the more I hear from industry and from public institutions and governments, they don't talk to each other at all. Um, and the Vienna conference was really good, but I didn't meet almost any industry stakeholders. There were only a handful. So it's like these
Oh.
conversations are happening, but often in silos. So, for instance, government representatives will be talking to each other and maybe to the NGOs and the other sort of third party organizations, but there's very few industry voices who are then there to say what they need from governments. For instance, that's like policies that will stimulate demand, or like green public procurement, sort of government commitment to buy these commodities. So that's another reason, is like there's lack of demand, but there's also a lack of proper orchestration and discussion across these key stakeholders that need to
Mm-hmm.
be all consulted. And I've, in past been in a discussion with, a government, someone being like, yeah, but there's no supply of these fuels. Why would we buy it? I'm like, if there's no supply because there's no demand. I mean, then the public sector, sorry, private sector is going to be like, yeah, but we don't have anyone to buy these commodities, so why would we produce them? So it's a bit of a chicken and egg, and we need to close
Yeah.
that. I think it was more it was a very topical question back when I worked in the shipping space a couple of years ago, but we still see that across the industries and clean
I
commodity.
think it's always there, right? Like in a triangle, we call it a decision triangle, where every corner there's a private sector, public sector, and then the stakeholders. They always put and point each other that okay, they will start. But always we forget that in economics, the demand, supply, and price always go side by side. If we want to create the demand, we have to also increase the supply. If we have to increase the supply, we have to create the demand, and then the price will be volatile accordingly. In fact, you touched upon various really amazing points, which brings us into the real world as well. That industries are right now not just making climate decisions; they are also making survival decisions right now, according to us, because there are several fiscal policies which can be as a barrier to their industrial balance, right? As decarbonization, profitability, and also like commodities and competitiveness, especially in the volatile energy market, I can see, right? And also, if everything has to be inclined, the government house also has to become in. They have to know what exactly the problem these industries are facing. If it's the cost increase, industry lose, which is the competitiveness, right? If they don't transition, they face regular risk of fiscal policies, which stucks between both of the world, right? As I said. So what do you say? Like what we call transitioning dilemma, right? Where something has to be done, but because of the supply chain, because of the situation, it's not been done. But also we are also looking in the future that it is very crucial for the transition. How to break that dilemma? The transitioning dilemma, according to you.
Oh, that's a very good question. There is this, and yeah, I think if we had a solution, we'd be already implementing it, hopefully. But transition finance actually is increasing.
Hmm.
It's exactly about transitioning some like assets and industries that have
Hmm.
a bit of that first mover risk, and someone is always going to have to take some risk, when making those first investments. Um, so we need a bit of risk appetite, but we also need guarantees and concessional finance, and whether
I think
it's
there is insurance as
multiple.
well, which is coming
Exactly,
in.
the insure
Yeah.
yeah, fully, like the insurance sector. I haven't had like interacted with much nor heard of so much in the discussions, but I think increasingly we need to start engaging them into these conversations, because the risks of not transitioning are also going to be huge, because you can get, stranded asset risk. Potentially policies are going to
Definitely.
come
Yeah.
into place that are going to mandate the production of X amount of green products, or X amount, you need to use X amount of green energy, like your emissions need to be this low. And so like there's huge risk in not moving, but
Mm.
because there's not certainty yet that that risk is going to exist, well, it's going to exist at some point, but we don't know when yet down the line.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's also causing a bit of inability to move. But sometimes the expectation of policy also can get a whole industry to move. If you think of the shipping sector, they were expecting the net zero fuel framework to, sorry, I
Hmm.
think I've got it wrong. Anyway, the IMO, International Maritime Organization, was very close to setting a sort of global carbon price at the end of last year. And because the industry was expecting this, the orders of zero emission vessels just massively, like it just, well, exploded is a large word, but that really increased because the industry was expecting this net zero framework to come into place, where they'd have to increasingly start decarbonizing their fleets. Unfortunately, this didn't get adopted because of the American government pulling out,
Same old, same old.
sort of
Mm.
exactly at the very last minute. And it's being renegotiated this year, but that there was so much confidence that this was going to pass within the industry, and I think almost every analyst thought it would pass, and then it didn't. So it was a really big disappointment. But that kind of showed that at the time the market had already started moving before the policy was really in place. Which just shows that, having supportive policies in place, and also de-risking a lot of these first investments, especially when it comes to like capital and capex intensive investments, is
Mm.
really key. And that's where public stakeholders have a role to play, whether it is governments, concessional finance providers, multilateral banks, development finance institutions, and others, and the insurance industry. Although I don't have a much deeper opinion about that, given I haven't researched it much, but I think we do need to start talking to bring the insurance industry along.
Oh, definitely. I think a few days back we had our one of the guests who's working in insurance, and also she's very good in just transition. So she works as an insurance uh, officer or something, but also she is one of the contact point for working group of just transition in Yongo. We had a discussion like how this insurance has something called pre-insurance as well. So the insurance has the insurance, and that insurance has
Yeah.
another insurance. Because of this transition, a lot of workforce capabilities are changing. The skills development has to be done. Also, in small amount of time, the technology changes, right? And due to this change in technology and innovation, we need to do this insurance thing, just because it's not just the technology but also the livelihood are on the stake. People need to get capacity building, they need to get training. If something happens to the entire market, at least the bunch of people who are working as a workforce, we have to take care of them. As called we call it as a response measure, right? Which also comes under the KCI and other points in UNFCCC. But yes, the insurance right now is getting really hyped up, because we knew that it was in the market. But as you said, the discussion, the communication, and the bridge between the global community, between the government and the private sector, still has a lot of barriers to be touched upon. I think if we can manage to minimize those gaps and minimize the make a bridge, I think we will get some sort of solution near in the future, which can definitely bring upon the clear path towards net zero. What do you say?
Yeah, really, really agree. And the climate effort is a common effort, but it's not more than just a climate imperative. There is actually a huge economic opportunity in
Hmm.
developing clean industries and resilient industries. Of course, with the tragedy going on in the Middle East, we all see that our current global model based on fossil fuels is very volatile and unsustainable, not in the like climate terms,
True.
but just it's not a long-term model that's going to give us the stability that we need.
Hmm.
I think everyone's already lived through two energy crises in the past 4 years or
Oh
so.
yes.
And like talking to a UK audience, we really feel it on the consumer level so strongly.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, we need to increase that dialogue between financial institutions, the public sector, governments, international organizations, and between industry, so that we can really showcase how everyone stands to win from this,
Hmm.
from the clean transition. And you also need the researchers who've done and the economists who can actually provide those data proof points, and then those can be translated into policies. And when you take into account all of these different, it's not an opinion, it's like the different needs and challenges of each stakeholder, you can actually formulate the best solutions. And with a lot of these like energy industry questions, we're locking
Hmm.
ourselves into a longer term pathway. If you invest in a really large plant, it's going to operate for 20 years or something.
Yeah.
So you also want to make sure that you don't lock yourself into, for instance, a very heavy emitting pathway today, and it might become a stranded asset um, in 10 years or so. So that's where having that, information across is really, really helpful. And there's not enough platforms, I think, that bring the right people together in a same room and ask those right questions. And they maybe exist on a global level, but sometimes it doesn't always exist like on a very regional, very
Regional
specific
level.
level in the right country. No, like even city level. I don't know if this happens. So I think maybe we need more of those very targeted approaches, and taking this global conversation really to the grassroots level.
I'm really happy that you took this example and also this insightful knowledge, just because the information that you provided is exactly what we are doing right now. Just for the viewers and also you, I haven't spoke that thing with you. I guess if I'm not remember. So we are doing a roundtable with the financial institutes and the private public sector commodities, and also with the government of London. So we are trying to bridge the gap. We are also inviting the think tanks to have a conversation around the clean energy development. So this is it's called London Clean Energy Roundtable, and we supposed to have it on in May, but we have to move it just because of the elections. You know, the elections are in the first and second week of May, and due to that thing, the parliament booking was not done properly. So the second day, the first day we will have the roundtable, and the second day it will be inside the parliament, where we will crisp it down within 2 hours, whatever has been like discussed, and then we will move ahead with the next year. And the narratives will feed in into directly various events or conferences or any other dialogues between government or non-government entities. In fact, it will be called as a pre-cop as well. We already have the platform is called the cleanenergyforum.co.uk. We already have engaged with Renewables UK and other organizations who are really trying to engage with us, and we are really grateful for that as well. And I would really love you to come here over there as well, because you have so much of information, a lot of knowledge about this energy sector, just not because in technological aspect, but also financial aspect, how it can we can bridge the dialogue, and definitely the commodities and the management of demand and supply. I guess it would be
Thank you.
fantastic to have you over there as well.
Thank you. That would be a pleasure. So let's follow up on that.
Definitely.
And amazing that you've organized this. It takes a lot of orchestration to get the right people in the same room.
It is. It is. So that's why I said, as initially we had the time and date already fixed. It was on 20th and 21st of May, but because of this elections, we have to move it, and it will come under, not under, during the London Action Climate Week.
Oh,
So we are
perfect.
moving it on 24th and 25th TBC, but still, I think 24th and 25th will be our main goal right now.
Yeah,
So for the
sounds good.
audience, yes, and for the audience,
Great.
let me simplify everything, whatever we have discussed. That okay, the project needs a stable policy, the project need predictable returns, the risk sharing mechanism. Without that, investors actually hesitate. I really have an interesting story. So I think few days last year, I went to one of the really biggest hydrogen conference in Leeds, which was in UK. And in there, I saw two companies, actually two companies, and the CEO was selling those companies on the stage. And they have fantastic products. So the MPV that they made, the minimum viable product, was so good that we don't need energy to consume all the CO2s from the atmosphere, because they have a liquidified hydrogen something mechanism, and they are trying to absorb liquidified ionized charged liquid, which is like make a hydrogen or something. They actually absorbs the carbon dioxide from the air, and then they try to make it as as a fuel for them to charge the batteries and stuff. So it was some kind of this kind of project. And other project was also based on CCUS, but also into hydrogen. But they were asking time from the investors. See, when the investors invest, they need a break even time, right? Which is called the break time, where they will not be a zero or not be like not negative, not positive, just break even, right? So they try to get that break even within 2 years or 3 years, because the return that they want is really massive, and also they want the return within 2 years or 3 years. But during this period of time, actually they need to do some kind of hit and trial methods, research and development. The product has to be worked in proper segment, and whatever the data they collect will be accordingly adjusted for their evolvement, and also to make it possible to bring that product into the market, right? So they need data, at least 2 to 3 years of data. And during that phase of time, investors are like reluctant to wait, right? So they pull out all the investment, whatever they do, and then they goes to any other product which has much lesser break even time, and then they have the return within 1 or 2 years. That is the situation right now clean energy startups, or you can say the series A, series B companies are facing. Do you have this kind of experience, or do you think that certain situation right now have some kind of solution, and we can bring those startups and like innovative companies into the market?
That's a really interesting question, and I actually I've always focused more on commercial scale, large scale projects that sort of work on based on the most viable technological pathways to transition some of the heaviest emitting sectors. So while there are so many of these really, really cool innovative solutions, scaling them so that they can have sort of that transformational impact within a sector is a lot harder. So I think we need a combination of approaches. We
Mhm.
need to get the economics. I don't know how familiar everyone is with economics, but when you adopt a new technology, it follows an S curve. So
Yes.
there's like a slow uptake of that technology and the
Mhm.
price might be higher, and all of a sudden it reaches
Yeah.
exponential growth and prices go down a lot. So or the costs go down. Price is different because that's regulated by the market, but the cost goes down
Yeah,
anyway.
that
And I
we are
think
seeing in the solar market as well, the solar
exactly.
panels, the wind energies and everything.
Exactly. And that came much faster than expected. A lot of analysts had projected it to like happen towards the latter end of this decade.
Uh-huh.
So industry isn't quite there yet, and we need to get clean industry to like reach that exponential growth. And that's actually where the more final investment decisions are reached on these large scale, commercial scale projects. Once you reach a few, you get to that tipping point at some point.
Mhm.
But we're not yet there yet, so we're still in that like increasing uptake of the curve.
Mhm.
So I'm very excited for like the coming years in clean industry. Um, all this to say, I haven't worked much with these smaller technologies, but I think it's just a healthy economy to have
True.
like to have innovators interested in creating technologies, and sometimes these might actually be really promising technologies
Mhm.
for the consumer market. Because, example, if you've got communities that are a bit outside of the main grid, they might be able to utilize some of these solutions to provide clean energy or clean commodities to their community. So that's where they could be deployed, and always I think a healthy economy is one where everyone's empowered to innovate
Very
and
true.
to pursue that. And we absolutely need these two, like the technology innovation, smaller companies to scale up at the same time as we still
Mm.
focus on that commercial scale, getting this
Mhm.
sector to that exponential S curve, bit of the S curve.
No, I think as you actually touched upon the economics, definitely everything in the world has the S curves and also the bell curve. Usually it increases, of course, and then it decreases eventually. It's not just the technology as well. If you see the economics of every country, how they became the world leader and then they went down. So it was a very interesting book I read through. It's called Changing World Orders, right? And in that book, everything since I think thousands of years back, they tried to implement all the data into a S curve, right? How a country came into a global leaders and how the country just went back down to zero. Another country came in, how those countries actually like bridge the gap between the technology when a country was really scarce with technology and resources, but how they became the world leaders and then they again dropped. So it's like a S curve for the entire like thousands of years data. And this is actually true. It's not just only the technology. We can do prediction for entire world. Like it will follow the S curve, and this is how economics really work. Thanks a lot for bringing this topic here, Bianca.
Yeah, thank you. And that's fascinating, and exactly a really good concept to employ in different in anything that you do in life, and any different topic.
That's true. And also, right now, I think a big applaud for you here. And right now, we'll have fun time. It's a quick game, and that's the thing that whenever a guest comes here, we do the games. And
Go for
I
it.
have made my cue cards for you. It's a kind of like a quick game where I'll say it's a reality or myth. So that's your answer. Is it a
Okay.
reality or is it a myth? So I'll say
Okay.
one sentence for each, and you have to say whether according to you is it reality or it's a myth. And from there, I'll take one question, and then I'll try to break it down in a paradox way. Why you told it's a reality and why it's a myth for you as well, right? So
Sounds good.
on you go. So there's enough money for the energy transition.
Yes. Reality.
Reality, okay. Technology is the barrier, and it is the biggest barrier.
Myth.
Net zero is achievable by current policies.
Myth.
Okay. Um, Net zero for decarbonization policies are exactly written in ESG level.
What do you mean by that?
So the policies that has been done for the companies, right? So the ESG reporting
Yeah,
has to be done,
yeah.
but those ESG reportings are been exactly followed or not?
Oh, myth.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, like they're
um,
not being followed.
Definitely. Uh,
Yeah,
Global geopolitics has a repercussion to the energy security
reality.
reality. So right now we are going to a rapid fire round, right? Because you had the
Sure.
time to think about
Mm-hmm.
everything, but right now you only have 2 seconds, right?
Okay,
Okay.
let's
So
go.
it's a rapid fire. Start
Okay.
with, yeah. So we are starting one, two. So let's go. Decarbonization in one word.
In one, sorry. Decarbonization in what?
Decarbonization in one word.
Oh, so I have to respond, not myth or reality.
No, 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 no. It's a rapid fire round. So this rapid
What?
fire, you have to say something,
Oh,
anything in
okay,
rapid
so
fire.
but not myth or reality.
No, it's gone. The
Okay,
myth or
got it.
reality
Apologies.
was a
Got
sentence.
it.
Yep,
Okay, okay.
perfect.
Yeah,
No
sorry.
worries. If sorry for if I didn't give you the
That's fine.
proper. Yeah.
That's fun.
So let's go. Decarbonization in one word.
Net zero.
Okay. Finance barrier or enabler.
Enabler.
Okay. Biggest risk, policy or market.
Policy.
Industry, ready or resistance.
Ready.
Future, decentralized or centralized grids.
Decentralized.
Okay. So there is a thing you have to explain energy transition and decarbonization of industry to a 15 and less year old child in one sentence.
Yes. Okay, let's go. So everything around us, invis there are invisible sectors like energy, industry. Everything around us is made from something that's made from steel, cement, chemicals, the plastic that we use, the houses we live in, the chair you're sitting on, the light that comes on comes from energy. These are everywhere, but we never pay attention to these commodities. And all of these things probably came by ship or by plane.
Hmm.
Most probably not a plane, but anyway, by ship. They were transported somehow. And these are such crucial parts of our lives. And society wouldn't exist without them. And we really need it for
True.
development, but
Hmm.
they're actually some of the highest emitting sectors, and bringing these sectors to zero is going to create so much a lot of prosperity globally,
Hmm.
economic prosperity. There's a lot of opportunities, and it's also going to decarbonize. That's how I would explain it. A bit longer than a sentence, but hope that works.
No, it was really amazing that how you uh de technically, oh, how to say, like, simplified them, not too
Yeah,
much of technicalities, but in a simple word, because our most of the viewers are as well children, because we are the constituency of children and youth. So this is really crucial for us, how we can break those uh, complex words and jargons into decomplexified sentences. And thanks, Bianca, for that. Right now we'll go more deeper into Bianca rather than an energy person. What's your
sure.
favorite book, and what's your favorite, like, what do you do in this Sunday morning? What's your favorite time?
Good question. Book is a good one. I love reading.
Uh huh.
And there's actually a brilliant book that I think is a good resonates a lot with my life, that I read when I was 17, and I keep rereading it with new eyes. But it's called My Life on the Road by Gloria Steinem, who is
Hmm.
one of the most famous sort of women's rights and indigenous rights advocates in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, still today. And she was fighting that battle at the time, but we're fighting in, I wouldn't want to call it a battle, but we have a big
Hmm.
challenge globally
Yeah.
on climate.
Yeah.
And she spent her life traveling, advocating, and really, living for that cause very fully, and making connections. And yeah, I love it because it resonates so much. And she's such a strong woman as well. So it's
I'll
very
definitely
inspirational.
try to put that link of the book whenever I'll have our snippets and advertisements. Definitely, it's a really great book recommendation that you give. Thanks for that. But what you do during this Sunday morning? What's your like go away from the world kind of thing?
The thing I really use to get away from the world is sports. I
Mm-hmm.
run a lot. Currently, I'm training for a hybrid race, a high
Mm-hmm.
rocks, as the
Oh,
popular people say. But it's something that the people I meet through sport, they don't really necessarily live in our climate energy world, which is great
yeah,
because
that's
you
true.
get so many different perspectives. And like,
Hmm.
some days I'm going on a long run with people who are like teachers, DJs, engineers, software
Yes.
engineers, I don't, or designers. And yeah, it makes you question, sort of also learn to explain yourself in different ways, and realize that I think my stuff is super cool, but not everyone thinks that our like cop
No, it
stuff
is.
is
It
cool
is.
or
It
even
is.
knows what they are. And I think it really brings me back to the community level so much more. Just doing sports with the people who like, yeah, who live based in Berlin now, so the people who live in Berlin, and it makes me connect in a very different way and get away,
Wow.
physically let go of everything as well.
Oh, that's so interesting to hear. Really. And thanks a lot for sharing with us. As you say, and as you know, that this is a really safe space. Any suggestion or anything you have never told to any youth or whoever pursuing this journey to the energy, climate change, or where we are right now to make some kind of change in the world, like meaningful? Do you want to share something to them?
Definitely. I think something that I would love to for more young people, especially young women, to hear is that, like, when I first got into the space, I had so much like imposter syndrome, and I was so afraid to speak up as well. And I was like, oh, but what, I'm probably saying something stupid, like I shouldn't say anything. And I'm like, am I supposed to be in this room? And I'd be like, oh, why am I here? And I'd feel really awkward sometimes in a lot of rooms when they were, professionals who were much more experienced than I was. And I think it took a lot of internal, like putting a lot of internal discomfort,
Hmm.
and obviously that was a path to learning. But I think just like never be afraid to shine. And I think my advice that I learned was like, oh, maybe I'm too. Sometimes I don't feel like I can say the right thing, but then ask a question. Ask whenever you don't know what to say. Ask a question. Ask someone. You know, it can be a really simple thing like, how did what talk tell me about your career, or just ask them something technical or something that they learned this that week. And people love to talk, and so that was one thing that made it easier for me to start approaching people that were much more senior. They're super impressive. Like, we work with brilliant people in this space. So yeah, and it can be a bit scary, especially when you're young coming into it. And I think especially for young women, you need to hear that take up space in that room. If there are no women in that room, that means you need to be in that room.
That's true.
Don't think you shouldn't be in there. So yeah, and get a seat at the table whenever you can. And it's actually difficult to get a seat at the table, but if you can, take it and own it, and you totally are allowed to be there, and you should be there. So yeah, I think we all need to hear that more as young people, as women, as indigenous people, as
Hmm.
non-Western people. We need more of you in these spaces.
Oh my God. So amazingly synchronized and comprehensively done that we have to ask question all the time. And my personal belief and my personal experience as well, working in the climate space, I think women have a lot of multitasking abilities and the managing abilities that we really need them on the table. I think whenever we have a really amazing team, having a balanced gender diaspora, those that team always excel in many ways. That's my personal experience that I have. Whenever there is any kind of group and crowd, it should have a balance. It should have a balance. And that's how I say that women empowerment is really crucial. You guys are
Absolutely.
really doing amazing, fantastic in all sectors, and I want to see more and more in the near future as well. And whenever I can help, definitely I help a lot of women wherever I can bring them onto the table with the
Yeah,
proper
totally. And we
decision
need
making power.
Yeah, agreed. And energy is actually one of the most gender unequal sectors. And finance even more so. It's like, I
Oh
think it's
yes,
less than 20% of women in each. So that means like the space may be a bit difficult to be in as a woman, but I think it's cool. It's cool that we're women in a male dominated space, and we need more of us here. And
that's
it
true.
also means that the people who are already in the space, we need to make sure that it's welcoming to more, women or other groups as well. So just, yeah, make sure to empower each other.
Amazing. And thanks a lot for those amazing words, intellectual but also meaningful uh, sentences that we got from you. And those are not just sentences or words that we receive. Those are knowledge, lifelong knowledge and experience. Because we can have those experiences from AI, Google or something, but coming from a person who actually lived it is different. It's really, really different. And thank you so much for coming here and giving your time, Bianca. We are really honored to have you here.
Thank you, Saikat. Pleasure was mine, and it's such a pleasure to be working in the space alongside you and everyone watching. And hope we cross. I mean, hope I see you soon and cross paths with whoever's watching this
Definitely.
soon enough.
I also like, let me close this with, we often say that we need more innovation. We often say we need more money, finances, but maybe what we really need is better alignment between finance, policy, and execution. Because without that, the transition slows down, right? And right now,
Yeah.
you are watching Let's Talk Energy with Saikat and Bianca as our guest. Thank you so much for your insightful conversation. And also to everyone who is watching, energy transition is not just technology, it's about how we fund the future, how we find a solution together. So join me every Saturday, 4 p.m. UTC. Right now, I think it's BST, the time has been changed. So let's keep the conversation going. And thanks again to Bianca to be here.
Thank you.